Hey, brother, hear me now. Brother dog, know me, understand.
Welcome to the Sargassum Podcast. I'm Robbie Thigpen.
I'm Francisca Elmer.
And I am Mar Fernandez. And we are your hosts for today. And we are going to share with you the latest ideas and concepts about sargassum and sargassum beaching events which have become an international challenge.
Hi everyone.
Hi, I'm Robbie, and I've been visiting my co-host Fran here for a while. I've been doing a lot of research down here in Quintana Roo for my project, creating biocultural education materials in lingua maya. And I decided to come over here and hang out at Beach Road for a little bit and see some nasty sargassum and some stuff like that. And we've just been having a real good time the last few days.
Yes, but we're not here to talk about your little vacation or work trip. We're here to talk about us wanting your feedback for our podcast.
Yeah, we've created this little survey we want you to fill out in the clip description below and all this here stuff. But fill that out. We want to know what you think. We started this. We didn't know what we were doing. None of us have ever made a podcast before. We're all on different continents and everything. And we think we've been doing an okay job, but we think we can do better. We have some ideas about how we need to change things in the future, but we want to hear what you think too.
So make sure you fill out the survey. You make us a huge favor in doing so. We really value your feedback, and please fill it out by the end of July.
Thank you much. We'll see you next week. Hello, all you Sargassum fans. Really glad to be back after a little hiatus and all that. And we're back here today with Mar and Francisca, of course. She's having a little bit of trouble with her camera, so we're not going to get to see her face talking. We just see this nice submarine picture of hers. But we got a really special guest today, and I know I say that about all our guests because they are, and I enjoy speaking to every one of them. But this is a little bit different because today we're talking about stuff besides sargassum. We're going to be talking about rum, and which is certainly one of my favorite subjects and one of the things we all think about when we think about the Greater Caribbean Basin. But she's Dr. Legina Henry, and she's an MIT graduate, mechanical engineer, and she's now a lecturer for renewable energy at the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill. And she specializes in renewable energy and applied mechanics, and she's researching sustainable energy sources in the Caribbean, such as biofuel made from sargassum and spent sugarcane stuff from rum distilleries. And one of the main places she worked with is the West Indies Rum Distillery. And she's doing a lot of really cool stuff here, and trying to make a better life for all of us. And so we're going to talk to her today. Legina, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Legina, and hi, everyone. We're finally back, and I'm happy to be back and talking about such an exciting topic, sargassum and rum. So two of my favorite things in this world. So, Legina, we always ask the same question to all our guests when we start our interviews, and that is, what is sargassum for you?
Right. So for me, sargassum is a biofuel feedstock that we could drive our cars with. Barbados is on a track to being 100% fossil fuel free by 2030. So we've been transitioning. Some people have gotten electric cars, but I know for a fact that the whole fleet, which is about 150,000 cars registered in Barbados, can't all be electric cars for a lot of reasons. And so sargassum gives us a biofuel feedstock that we could drive biogas cars in Barbados.
Wow, that's so
Is that
cool.
what you were asking? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
You answered a question. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no right and wrong answers on this podcast.
It sounds like your answer is that sargassum is a means to an end to you, and that's a really great answer.
Yes, it is. Well, one more thing I'll say, is, I guess you must know that for a lot of these tourism-based economies in the Caribbean, sargassum is a crisis, and it is stopping tourism on the beaches. So sargassum offers this kind of double, a bifold benefit to us, because first we'll have no sargassum seaweed on the beaches anymore if we used it to fuel 136,000 registered cars in this country. So it solves two problems. It solves a problem in the energy and transport industry, but also in the tourism industry.
Let me ask you a question real quick before we get back to some of this other stuff. What is the primary energy source for, where do you get electricity from down the island? Is it
Right
from
now,
diesel?
the number one source is fossil fuels, heavy oil and diesel. And the goal of the country is that in the year 2030, it will no longer be heavy oil and diesel. And so we're going from primarily liquid fuels. And so, yes, I love solar power, and yes, I love wind power because I teach renewable energy. But to me, a country that's primarily driven on liquid fuels now should probably think to transition primarily to a green liquid fuel, because of who's here and the expertise that's here and the infrastructure that's here already. So yes, we've done some transitions to solar energy, but in my heart, I think we should move to widespread biofuel use. And I think sargassum provides the needed feedstock for that.
Do you think that you would be able to supplant some of these dirty fuels that you're using to generate electricity at the moment?
Yes, definitely. And so the country has a national energy policy that has this transition kind of, the rollout of the transition kind of spelt out in details. And I think the details will have to change. And I think the way the details will change is that we'll move to more biofuel in that mix, the eventual mix. So my lab, we're producing results to show the efficacy of sargassum in the biofuel process. So yeah.
Nice, thank you.
That's super cool. And you're actually the first person we have on the podcast who is from Barbados. And I know Barbados gets a lot of sargassum on its shore. So can you tell us a bit how it affects Barbados? Like which areas are affected and which type of people are affected as well?
Yeah, sure. So this country, like I said, I think in our little chat before we started recording, I said every year, there's twice the number of tourists in Barbados as there are nationals. So this country, it really is heavily driven, the economy is heavily driven by tourism, much more so than anywhere I've ever lived. And so everything in the country depends on the number of tourists coming through this country. And so having sargassum is unpredictable on the beach, what day you go and if you see sargassum or not. And that has affected tourism. Every day, a lot of money is spent by the government of the country to remove sargassum from beaches and put it in landfills. The sargassum in the landfills poses threats to the groundwater in Barbados, and Barbados is water scarce. The sargassum, the process of clearing up the sargassum seaweed from the beaches could be harmful, and it's been shown in literature, not specific to Barbados as yet, but it's been shown in literature from other islands in the Caribbean that actually the hydrogen sulfate gas that comes off the sargassum is to the detriment of human health. People end up in the emergency room if they inhale too much of it. That's the degrading sargassum on the beach. So it's a health threat, is an economic threat, is a groundwater threat. So basically, I would say this whole country is threatened by sargassum. Every time the Prime Minister is listing national crises and national level challenges in the past 2 years, she talks about COVID and she talks about sargassum. She always says it. So it's seen as a threat to the country.
Interesting. You know, you're using anaerobic digestion on the sargassum and all that, and I guess the rum byproducts contain a lot of sugar still. Does that catalyze the process, or how does all that affect the anaerobic process, and just
So
what is the anaerobic
we've
process?
given a few, yeah, so I'll say we've given a few talks, and a couple times I've had other scientists from other parts of the world, particularly British scientists working with the other Caribbean locations for their samples. And they've said they haven't had the kind of success we've had in terms of how much biogas we got out of it. But we never digest, I mean, we did a couple tests where we did produce the methane gas from just sargassum, but usually we co-digest it with rum distillery waste, which is high in chemical oxygen demand, and also some bacteria source. So for the past few experiments we've done, we used fish offals from the fish markets and our local grass, but going forward, we're gonna use beef manure and as a source of bacteria. And so, yeah, we have a source of bacteria. We use the, because anaerobic digestion requires a lot of water, but Barbados is water scarce. So we've used the rum distillery wastewater, which just goes out into the ocean or goes into big, it goes to the ocean or it goes into big troughs where it's evaporated. That's what happens to this wastewater. For every bottle of rum, you have 100 times, well, 95 times that volume of wastewater is discarded. So the rum is just 5% of what goes in to be distilled out. And
so it takes 100 gallons of liquid to make 1 gallon of rum.
Yeah. And so West Indies Rum Distillery, for example, discards something like 300,000 liters of water every production day, and they produce rum about 300 days a year. And then if you look to the bigger islands like Trinidad, that's just 1/4 of what the largest distillery in Trinidad discards every day. So throughout the Caribbean, this rum distillery wastewater is a waste product that could be used to produce energy. Alongside the sargassum, because all the islands struggle with sargassum inundation for the past 10 years.
Are you talking about fresh water? Is this fresh water that is discarded in this process? So very valuable fresh water?
Yeah. So West Indies Rum Distillery, they're actually on a natural aquifer. So on their property, they have access to massive amounts of groundwater, but this island is water scarce. And so West Indies Rum Distillery is happy to find a use for this wastewater. They're very happy to work with us. And in fact, all the distilleries we approached were happy that scientists would come in and say, we have a solution that involves your waste product. Because of the pressures, local pressures, and I guess international pressures to not waste, and their whole international move towards circular economies and waste nothing.
Yeah, as a rum consumer, I would feel very bad if most of the waste product of making rum would just be discarded and not used. So I'm happy to hear that there are ways of using it. So that comes to my next question. So you have tested different types of rum distillery waste, and
yes.
which ones work the best together with the sargassum?
Right, so good question. So how much chemical oxygen demand is in the rum depends on what the industrial process is. So for example, Mount Gay Rum Distillery produces a large, I mean, West Indies is the biggest producer in Barbados, but the second largest is Mount Gay. And they have their high volume product, and then they have the premium product. And we found that the wastewater from their premium product, which just goes through the process once, gave us more methane output than the wastewater from their high volume product, which is like the lower cost but high volume. Those ones, because they actually can cycle their wastewater a few times. We found the first time we ran tests with Mount Gay Rum Distillery wastewater, we got less methane out because it had less chemical oxygen demand, because that water had been through the process a few times, which is Mount Gay, I guess that was their solution to wasting less, that they cycled the wastewater. But yes, very much so. It depends on the product. What is the rum that's being produced? Which factory? So West Indies Rum Distillery actually don't cycle their products at all. So it just goes through once and then it goes into the ocean. And so that water was most prolific in producing methane in our first set of experiments. So yeah.
That's interesting. So now we have to all drink the premium rum to make sure that you have enough good wastewater for your
we will
energy.
we will suffer ourselves somehow.
So Legina, what type of ratio do you need between the sargassum and the rum distillery waste? Like, how much of that water do you need per amount of sargassum?
Yeah, so and it's similar to the ratios I was just talking about. So in an anaerobic digester, 95% of the volume is filled with water, so the wastewater, and only 5% is the you have the solid feedstock, so our bacteria source and the sargassum. So in the actual digester, it's more water than solids.
Nice. I've got a kind of an extra question for you, because when I came into this day, I had a completely different impression. I've just learned some stuff from you. Thank you so much for being a good teacher. And because I was imagining that when you waste, I wouldn't realize that you're talking about wastewater, and I just said waste in my information, and I was thinking that you were using the spent cane after it had been crushed and whatnot. With that. Are you using that as well? Is that a part of the process? When
you, I don't know how many of you have been to Barbados, but when you drive through Barbados, mostly what you see in the inner part, obviously drive along the coast and all you do is you're mesmerized by the beautiful blue ocean. But when you drive through the center of Barbados, what you see is cane fields mostly. Well, in my experience, I've seen most of the land the terrain is cane fields. And the history is that sugarcane was the economy, and it was sugarcane powered by windmills and cane vinasse. For the past 7 decades, though, the cane industry has been on the decline. And in fact, I happened upon this sargassum project. I started off looking at cane because I said, we can't have 150,000 electric vehicles on this island. We could probably have 20% of that be electric. Everything else will be biofuel. What is the feedstock? And we started that summer 2019 looking at sugarcane. But in reading and in going around to the people on the ground, the experts, the cane experts, we realized the volumes in sugarcane are way smaller than we thought in the economy and was produced. And so sugarcane is on the decline in Barbados. The rum that's produced in Barbados is primarily from imported molasses. It's not from local molasses. The premium rums use local products, but not exclusively. And certainly the high volume rums are made from molasses that's brought into Barbados, but using the Barbados process in producing rum, and that was responsible for the taste. But yeah, we learned that everywhere seems to have cane fields, but that doesn't mean cane is the most promising feedstock. And so we moved away from cane and moved towards this sargassum seaweed.
Well, I hope that all the rum producers in Barbados hear this message. We're on to you. Buy local. Quit importing stuff. Use what you got there, because it takes a lot of energy to bring that stuff there, and you got it right in your backyard. And from what you say, the local one makes the best anyhow, right? And
Right.
so
So we use the local ones for the high quality product.
Yeah. So
Legina, would it be possible to make rum out of seaweed, out of sargassum? Not really, right?
Maybe. So I'm a mechanical engineer, so I actually learned a lot about chemical engineering in this whole process of this experiment, but I'm a mechanical engineer. But I'll say this, on the first day we walked into West Indies Rum Distillery, Mount Gay Rum Distillery, it was so funny because neither me nor my students knew anything about rum. And so it was funny. We just felt like these innocent little people in this big rum distillery, and they had us smell things and sample things, and it was just like we didn't know left from right in there. So I actually on a discovery process learning about rum because I didn't really know a lot about rum. But I'll say this. We have scientists at the university looking at questions like that. The biologist who helped me to start off this project is Dr. Nikolai Holder at UWI Cave Hill. And so he's a biochemist. And Nikolai makes whiskey and all kind of cool stuff. So he would definitely be happy to answer your questions about the possibility of making rum from sargassum seaweed. But so I'll defer to somebody like Nikolai to answer that question.
I'll definitely keep that one on my list of questions to ask. Now I wanted to ask, so if you would upscale this process of creating biofuels with sargassum on Barbados, how much sargassum could you actually use? Like, could it be, I don't know, a ton per year, or would it be only a very small proportion of what comes to the beaches? How much could you actually process?
We would need all. We did the numbers. We would need all the sargassum in the exclusive economic zone of Barbados to power all the driving that happens in this country. And we took a great pains and a lot of care to calculate the total energy that's used by the driving force every day to get to school and work and back home. And from our numbers, we would need all the sargassum in our exclusive economic zone. We would also need all the rum distillery waste in Barbados and go to a couple other industries. We would need something like 70% of the total wastewater being produced in Barbados. So out of all the different industries like the beer industry, municipal waste, etc. But we would want to redirect most of the wastewater towards transportation in the country, if we wanted to power the whole transportation sector.
And sorry, actually, you don't need to clean the sargassum. You don't need to get rid of the salt before you put it into this process, right? Or you do?
Well, we tested all kinds. So we did different pre-treatments. We did no pre-treatment. We did pre-treatment with fresh water, pre-treatment with salt water, and saw the different rates. So everything is all about economics. So we have to think about the economy of fresh water, the economy of, we have free access to salt water, the economies of the difference in the output. the freshwater pre-treated sargassum produced more methane than the saltwater produced sargassum. So everything is an economic calculation of, yes, you could get it out to the saltwater treated sargassum.
What do the people there think about your project?
Well, every time we present this project, people love the idea. They love a solution coming out of the local university. And I always feature the students.
Nice.
It was 5 students I was working with in the first summer when we started looking at this question. And Bajans are happy to see their little young Bajans coming up, thinking and solving problems for the country. So they love that. People love the idea of getting rid of the sargassum because nobody likes it. And I think people also like the idea of driving around cars powered by sargassum and rum distillery waste. They just, so the reception is very positive every time we present, and for many reasons, which is nice. It's always encouraging.
Nice. How small is it, the facility you're working in now? I mean, how many gallons or liters or how big are these anaerobic chambers that you're using?
All right. So, and I'll bring back in Nikolai here. Nikolai Holder finished his PhD a year ago. He's Dr. Holder now, but his PhD innovation was microdigesters. And so normally for these tabletop biofuel experiments, you probably have like 1.5 liters and you run these 30-day tests. But Nikolai came up with a way to do these tests in these tiny little salt shaker sized bottles and get accurate results. So he called them microdigesters. And so we were running hundreds of tests on a lab bench at the same time. And so we could get all these different comparative results in a short period, low impact. Now this summer, we're moving up to 5,000 liters. So we're actually using systems we imported from Home Biogas in Israel and running experiments on that, and then compressing it with some kind of high-grade compressor. I actually won a grant, $100,000 US grant, when I presented this project at a UN, the 74th UN General Assembly. They had these side meetings, and I presented at the UN FDSN meeting, and Blue Chip Foundation was there. And they said, we'd be happy to give a donation to this project. And so we got that grant. And so I've been using the grant to buy materials and continue the experiment and scale up. So we hope to be driving a car on the sargassum biomethane by the end of the year. And then we're in the middle of writing up a business plan to commercialize the solution as we're figuring out the numbers experimentally.
So when you scale this up, you're going to be using huge containers and to do this, correct?
Yeah. And so one of the things I did last semester was calculate the size of the digester we'll need to power the transportation sector, how much land we'll need, where will all of this feedstock and everything come from, which is why I answered the previous question that we actually do need all the sargassum that we have in our exclusive economic zone.
Now, there's, when you digest this biomass, there's waste left over, yes?
Yes.
What do you do with the waste?
Yeah, so the spirit is sustainability and waste nothing. And the big byproduct is like a slurry sludge. It's like a sludge that's rich in fertilizers for plants. So the major solid waste that comes out of this process will be diverted to agriculture.
Nice.
But again, I'll say we've only gotten our results in microdigesters so far. This summer, we're scaling up to 5,000 liters. So we'll have a better sense of the byproducts, because right now it's in the lab and that stuff just gets discarded in the lab in the way you discard things in a bio lab.
Now, there's not even enough for a potted plant, I would think.
Yeah, no, it's not.
So let me ask one more question, and then maybe we'll wrap it up unless somebody else has got something. Have you tested these waste products for contaminants, heavy metals, for example?
Yes, and people ask that question all the time. And I'll say this, science is iterative, and science is a journey of discovery. Every question you answer opens up 100 other questions.
Oh, I got 75 more, but I'm going to stop with this one.
Yeah. And so our hope is in the 5,000 liter experiment to thoroughly understand all the byproducts, because we want the solution to be sustainable. If we think the solution puts much more heavy metals in a concentrated way, in an unsustainable way, in the environment of Barbados, is introducing a new problem to solve, then we will have to iterate our approach. And so we hold into the principle of sustainability. And yes, one of the questions is there's heavy metals that people have found in other parts of the ocean. So far, we haven't seen that impact us. The heavy metals actually stop them from getting methane out of the sargassum. We haven't had that problem. So we need to understand this summer what is the content, the heavy metal content of the sargassum we have been using.
Well, we'd like to hear about that after you find out. And all, it does. That was
Sure.
very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and Legina, so now that you've gone through the whole process of trying to figure out how this is going to work with the biofuel and the methane made of sargassum and the distilled water and so on, and you're at the same time a professor in renewable energy, so do you think that from all the options available, this biofuel is the best option for Barbados right now?
I think so, and mainly because of what I said earlier, which is that the country for all the history, well, since they upgraded from these windmills around Barbados, when you visit, you'll see all these ancient looking windmills. But since the Industrial Revolution, they've used oil. And so if you have all this technology in a country, including a nationwide natural gas grid, where gas goes to houses and restaurants, I am saying don't abandon all this technology, upgrade the technology and use a comparable fuel. So I wouldn't support a 100% solar powered Barbados. I would say because of who's been trained, because of all the practices and all the solutions that have been entrenched in Barbados for decades, we should probably primarily move to another earth-friendly liquid fuel. And so I am pro biofuel. Of course, I told you before we started the recording that wave energy was one of the things I studied in my PhD work. And I'm all for looking at other oceanic sources of renewable energy, but I think the primary source of energy should be biofuel.
Yeah, by using sargassum and the wastewater, you also actually solving other problems that the island has, like you getting rid of wastewater going towards your coral reefs, and you getting rid of the sargassum on your beaches. One question I have is this: what state does the sargassum have to be in to use? Like, do you need fresh sargassum, or can you use any type of sargassum for it?
Right. So far in our tests, we've dried the sargassum and gotten it to almost like a powder form before we put it into the microdigesters. And so we're going to be doing a similar thing in the bigger digesters, the larger anaerobic digesters. But we've seen in feedback when we've given these presentations, people say that when they dried the sargassum and shipped it from, for example, the South Caicos Islands to the UK, the results were different. So again, so we haven't had to do that. And so we haven't had to treat and dry the sargassum and wait very long before we put it in the digester. My students go out to the ocean, pick up sargassum, get to the lab, get the stuff into the crucibles, and then into the microdigester. So we we use fresh sargassum straight out of the ocean. And I think in the foreseeable future, we wouldn't need to change that. And we will move all our logistics around just getting the fresh sargassum straight into the ovens and to be dried and then processed.
Very nice. Well, that wraps it up, I guess. Well, that's been a really different kind of meeting we had today, different kind of podcast, and it was very fun and informative and all. And I think moving forward, we're going to call ourselves the Rum Podcast instead of the Sargassum Podcast. I think that'll be kind of appropriate for the future. But Legina, thank you so much for being here today. And I hope we get to talk to you again when you get some more results from your research, because this is really great stuff. And I think it's, you know, it's something that all the other island nations can use too, not just there, but we've talked to people with having sargassum problems in East Africa and the Indian Ocean, and they could use this kind of stuff. So thank you so much for your research and your work, and look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks a
Okay,
lot.
take-
Regina.
Thank you so much.
No
Take care.
problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So what'd y'all think?
It was great. It was actually super interesting. I was expecting that she was going to make rum out of sargassum, but she's doing something that is even better, because to be honest, I don't know if I would like rum with a taste of seaweed, but she's doing something even better, which is making the production of rum more sustainable by using the wastewater that comes out of the process. I didn't even know that. So
Yeah. Well, she's dealing with like 40 things.
Yeah.
You know, that she's taking care of in this. I mean, she is dealing with a big picture thing. She's not just doing what we thought she was doing. She's doing so much more, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think this is my new favorite sargassum solution, because she even has a plan for scaling up. She's like, okay, if we're going to use this for our cars, then we can use all of the sargassum that comes to our island, and also a lot of the wastewater, like all the wastewater from the rum distilleries, but also other wastewaters. And as a coral reef scientist, like, wastewater getting into the ocean is what's killing our coral reefs. And it's really hard to get local communities to realize that and also take measures against it, because, you know, it costs money. But if you can make fuel out of it, use it to make biofuel, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and the thing about it is that the little talk we were having beforehand, if you find out there's a lot of bad stuff in the sludge later, maybe we can talk to her about my idea about using plants to mine those things out of there, and all, which is pretty ironic that we were discussing that earlier.
It was really nice that she's actually taking this circular economy and sustainable approach from the beginning. She's already thinking, okay, how can I do this process in the best way possible to have as much positive effects as possible, and not just like, I'm going to do it however I can, and then I'll look back and see what I can modify to make it more sustainable. But she's looking at it from the beginning, and I think that's a great point of view.
You know, any project, if you can take it and see the big picture from the beginning, it's going to be more effective in the end.
One of the things I really loved was those micro digesters she was talking about, because she pretty much said, hey, here on the island, we made this thing that we have in our labs that other labs don't have. Those fancy labs in Europe who are all trying to figure out a way how to make methane, they have to use much more space in their labs to do this and cannot run as many experiments. But we have this extra special technology that we developed on the islands to do this, and it's just so rare that there's actually more like new facilities and novel techniques that are in these islands rather than in Europe, where there's a lot more money, and often also people with brighter minds get attracted to those labs in Europe than to the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. And everyone, we want to thank the Kimberly Green Latin American and Caribbean Center at Florida International University for sponsoring this series of podcasts right now, and we thank them very much. I don't think they understood that one day that they were going to be sponsoring the Rum podcast instead of the Sargassum podcast, but that's okay. If you look down below, you'll be able to like, follow us, and all that kind of stuff. Share us with your friends, and let us hear from you from time to time, because you might have an idea that we want to talk about. And with that, we thank you very much for being here again. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here with us, and we're happy about that. Thanks.
Thanks for listening, and drink a rum thinking about us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today and learning with us from our guests. If you want more information about our guests talk about today, then please check our show notes for links and information in our archives, and don't forget to like and share our podcast with your friends.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can support us and get the exclusive benefit of being able to submit questions for our interviewees ahead of time.
The Sargassum podcast is produced by Marine Conservation Without Borders and is made possible with financial support from the Kimberly Green Latin American and Caribbean Center's U.S. Department of Education Title VI grant.
It is produced by Marcel Van de Kamp and our summer interns, Lauren Blankenship, Eloise Lopez, and Jenna Contucio, and hosted by Robbie Thigpen, Francisca Elmer, Mar Fernandez, Florence Menez, Cleo Meridakis, and Paula Diaz.
We will be back next week with another exciting guest. The music of this podcast is from the song Thema Pray by Drizzle Road Rana, an artist from Roatan. Follow him on Spotify or YouTube for more music. But for now, here is the full song, Thema Pray.
Hey, brother, hear me now. Brother, dog. Now me understand. Now for them no want to see we get nothing. That's why them a free and always front and star. Now for them no want to see we get nothing. That's why them a free. Now for them a free. Them a free. Them a free. Me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free. Me no great success. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no great success. So me tell them, yeah, I'm a system man, me no take that. Only if it come from Jah, I'll accept that. Now for them, me put my trust in and give me setback. Yo, select that, me and pull up that. Tell some wicked that bad mind, me no fear them. Anytime them cheat and chat, me no hear them. Me dash a few hearts so for the queer them. Me dash a few hearts so tell them where them. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no great success. So me tell them, yeah. Yes, me know me have a lot of fake friends, but me never woulda thought me woulda have fake family. So me tell them straight, me no trust them. Me no trust you and me no trust him. Fake friend lost bad mind in a real life. Star me no rate that, star me no rate that. Me real for me woulda bust a million shot in a real life. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no great success. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no great success. So me tell them, yeah. Go look alike, but them a hate and grudge and creep on mine. Them a move like Judas. Them a move like Judas. Plus, everybody have a life to live. So they give one rascal who a try judge me. Like them chit chat, so what them want to say. Cause none of them out there nah feed. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no gain progress. Now for them a free. Them a free, me no reap success. Now for them a